Hey everybody, how's it going? And welcome back to Copper Jacket TV. So we've got some pretty big news that just happened today in regards to the so-called assault weapons bans cases that have made their way before the Supreme Court. If you're not aware, there's actually 3 separate cases from the state of Illinois that have requested cert from the Supreme Court alone. I always thought it would be a case from California or maybe New York that ended up overturning all of these different bans across the country, but it looks like Illinois might be the state that ends up seeing all of these bans overturned. And I personally do not care who gets there first as long as it gets done. But we've got some pretty big news again that just happened today in regards to one of those cases. And this makes me think it looks like the Supreme Court is going to take this case up. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about what's going on here. So like I said in the beginning, there are 3 different cases currently sitting before the Supreme Court that have to deal with the ban in Illinois. Each one is attempting to address that ban in a different way, even though it's just mildly different. But each one is different in its own right. So the Supreme Court could decide to hear one of them, multiple, or all of them, or maybe even none of them. Hopefully they will take up at least one. But these 3 different cases are Bevis v. Naperville, or Bevis. We also have Harrel, and we also have Barnett. These 3 different cases, again, signify a big push to the Supreme Court that they need to do something in order to correct a big problem and a split that we're seeing in the circuit courts. Now, anytime there's a huge case like this that would have a massive impact on gun control across the entire country, you're going to have people who petition the Supreme Court in favor of the plaintiffs and petition the Supreme Court in favor of the defendants. The defendants would be the state in this case. Now, that support sometimes comes from the most unlikely places, and in my opinion, this was completely unexpected. But we have 2 different petitions to the Supreme Court now in favor of the plaintiffs, both in Barnett and in Harrel. Now, these petitions both come from major law enforcement agencies. Take a look at this. Now, the first one that we have here, dated today in the Supreme Court of the United States, Barnett v. Raoul, who is the Attorney General of the state of Illinois. It says, on petition for writ of certiorari to the United States Courts of Appeals for the 7th Circuit, brief of amicus curiae, Illinois Sheriff's Association, in support of petitioners. So the Illinois Sheriff's Association is in support of the petitioner in this case, basically saying that they do not stand with the state of Illinois in regards to the Illinois' ban on so-called assault weapons and magazines that can hold more than 10 rounds. That is absolutely huge that you have the Sheriff's Association standing up for Barnett in this case. That's going to make a difference to the Supreme Court. Now, the next one, again, dated today in the Supreme Court of the United States, Harrel v. Raoul, on petition for writ of certiorari to the United States Court of Appeals for the 7th Circuit, brief of amicus curiae, National Police Association, in support of petitioners. That is one that I did not see coming. The Police Association, the National Police Association, says that Illinois is doing something that they should not do, and they are throwing their weight behind Harrel in this case. Now, there may be some history of support from these 2 organizations that I'm not aware of, but I was not expecting these major law enforcement associations to jump behind the petitioners in this case. A lot of times, I know that when it comes to sheriffs, especially in rural counties, we'll see, support for the plaintiffs in cases like this. But we're talking about the National Police Association. We're talking about the Sheriff's Association in the state of Illinois. And we're talking about major law enforcement associations that are throwing their support behind the plaintiffs in this case. Now, remember that the Supreme Court is going to be taking a look at both sides, right? So petitions for the state, petitions for the plaintiffs, and while it may not determine the outcome, well, obviously will not determine the outcome of the case if they decide to take it up, it is something that they will consider when looking at the case to determine whether or not to take it up. So again, you have the Seventh Circuit who says, hey, these things aren't even protected by the Second Amendment whatsoever. You have the Seventh Circuit who says, oh, they're too much, like military weapons, so we're going to go ahead and allow the state to ban them. This is all over the place. I mean, this is an absolute cluster. And unless the Supreme Court steps in on at least one of these cases to clarify, not to us, because you and I, we know better, right? But to clarify to the lower courts that, hey, knock it off. Even though you guys didn't like Bruin, that is the new standard and you have to apply it. They have to take one of these up in order to stop what has been happening, which has just been a nonstop barrage across this country from the circuit courts, from the appellate courts, that is just confusing on all ends. So the reason I wanted to bring this up today is because with the support from those major law enforcement associations in favor of the plaintiffs, it gives us a much better chance that the Supreme Court might actually take one of these up. And if they do, with everything that we've seen in the past, with the decision in Bruin, the opinions in Bruin, what we saw as the standard that was set forth to the lower courts, I don't see how there's any way that we do not win this. And again, that would have a massive impact. That would overturn everything in California and Washington, New York, Hawaii, I mean, you name it, New Jersey, all these states that have similar bans regarding capacity or type of arm. That would be it. It would be over. So this is massive, and I'm watching this one really closely. I'll let you guys know if anything changes or if they pick one or more up. It would be nice to see them pick them all up, but that's probably not going to happen. So hopefully they at least pick one up, and we'll let you know what changes. Thank you all very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please like, subscribe. You guys have a great day.